Smile, John.
Good evening. It's July 7th, 2025. And it's my pleasure and honor to be speaking with Mr. John J. Jeckovich. How are you looking? How are you doing today, Mr. Jeckovich?
Good. Thank you.
You're looking well. You're looking well. I like your new clothes. How are you feeling? Pretty good?
Yeah, pretty good, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Jeckovich was from the Company H, the 2nd Battalion of the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. We're the second time around in your book, and we're on chapter 7. Do you want me to read a few pages before we move further?
Yeah.
All right. I'll need your dog tag number.
42965.
Okay, that's the book. That's the dog tag number that opens the laptop. Here we go. Mr. Jeckovich is in the 7th chapter. We're the second time around. And it's titled Overseas and Beyond. Page 179. This is when he just landed into Wales, Haverford West, off of a troop ship. And he's getting ready for some more additional training to get ready to go into battle. And here we go. Our billets were on Milford Road, so our guide directed us up the road to the intersection of Albert Street and Shipman's Lane. Instead of following Milford Road down the steep grade on Dew Street, we turned left on Albert Street and we headed up another steep grade. A lot of steep grades in Wales, huh? I have to think about all the details you knew here.
Yeah.
And it certainly didn't have nothing to do with Google, because you didn't use Google.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with AI, because you never used AI. And it didn't have nothing to do with the computer. You wrote it all by hand in memory, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. We veered left on Barn Street until we came to the City Road and our shower building. All in all, it was roughly 2.5 miles from our billets, generally steep upgrades and narrow streets. Incidentally, our shower building has a code name of Kangaroo Pit 2. You remember that, huh? Wow. Upon entering, we discovered it is a rather old building, somewhat like our present billets, but appeared that the Army engineers did some retrofitting here during the last several years. There were 6 overhead showers in rectangular shape, approximately 12 feet in length and 6 feet across. Sitting adjacent to the shower area in an alcove with about 6 waist-high sinks with mirrors located on each sink. Separated by a large swinging door was a latrine area consisting of 3 urinals and 3 commodes. Despite the inconveniences of its distance from the company area, I thought it was satisfactory and it appeared to be clean and well taken care of. This has reminded me of all these details you got here.
Yeah.
You know, we read the book second time around, there's details on everything. How about that guy when you were in Niagara Falls who said he was an expert?
Yeah.
And he said you missed something.
You quoted this wrong and didn't cross the T.
What the hell was wrong with him?
Yeah.
He had no idea.
Yeah.
He had no idea. Why would someone act like that?
Yeah. That's what he does.
Yeah. Who is he related to?
I don't know. Never seen him before. I don't know. I don't want to see him again.
Fink Lape and I went back to the shower area, found a small bench located to the shed to shed our clothes, and commenced to take a hot shower. So there were hot showers there.
Yeah, well, the Army engineers put it up.
Wow. And fresh water, something we had not done since leaving Breckenridge. After a refreshing shower, we shaved in our shorts before the row of the sinks. Putting our fresh, clean fatigues on, we made our way to the billets. As we walked back as we walked back, it gave us an opportunity to explore the immediate surroundings more closely. So basically, when you want to use a shower, you had to walk 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a walk. The people we encountered on our walk back were friendly and eager to find out what states we were from. So these are the town peoples of Haverford West. Okay.
They took a lot. They took bombings from the Germans for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, yeah. So let's see where I'm at. As we walked back, it gave us great opportunity to explore the immediate surroundings. The people we encountered on our walk back were friendly and eager to find out what states we were from. So they were nice people.
Yeah, yeah.
As you're walking back, they say, "What are you from, New York or Pennsylvania?" Yeah. We soon discovered most of the Welsh people had a relative or even a distant relation somewhere in the United States.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We also learned rather quickly most of them envied those who were in the States and wished they could trade places with them. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But kind of like
Well,
today.
they're getting bombed every night.
Kind of like today, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place to live. What surprised me greatly was there was no great destruction from all the bombing of England we heard about in the States. The natives informed us they were a distance from London, which got the brunt of the bombing. After more questioning, they told us that they were a little over 200 miles from London. That's quite a ways.
Yeah. They pulled them out of the city.
Yeah. After more questioning, they told us that they were a little over 200 miles from London, and during an actual raid at night, they could hear the thumping of the bombs as they exploded, as they actually seen flashes of bright light in a distant sky. They also informed us that most of the children under 16 from London were living with relatives or with someone in the immediate family in the surrounding towns and villages. So they sent over the young kids to the Wales from London to try to keep them safe, right? Yeah. They all seemed to take the effects of the war with much calmness and dignity, even though they were in a closer proximity to it than we were. They also displayed a firmness of conviction that they're capable of driving Germany and its warlords from their tiny island. We arrived back at the village just in time for the formation to march down to the mess hall. How far was the mess hall now?
2.5 miles.
Jesus, just as eating and showering is a lot of job. Wow.
It's a long ways to go.
Yeah, the march could
Get
start.
up with appetite.
Yeah.
21 minutes.
The march would start at Milford Road and cross the first intersection at Albert Street and Shipman's Lane. We continued in Dew Street, which the steep grade until we reached the intersection of Town Hill and Market Street. After passing the intersection, High Street leveled with fairly level grade. Half a mile past the bridge, and Quay was the mess hall. It was a good 2.5 miles march, and I enjoyed it greatly. We marched in unison, and I felt a great sense of pride and satisfaction, and that I was finally doing something worthwhile, and that there were people in the midst who appreciated our efforts and sacrifices. So it was nice that you had people to appreciate.
Yeah.
Once you get in a situation where people don't appreciate, it's not nice. With more than satisfactory meals, coupled with adequate sleeping quarters and shower facilities, we felt that we'd be perfectly content to spend the rest of the war right here. This would not be the case, nor would a good deal like this would last too long. I would think about Anne as we marched to the Chow, and she seemed 1,000,000 miles away, and she was in a different planet. as I was using a different plan. I decided to write her a letter later that day and try to convey her my feelings, knowing that an Army censor would be reading every word I wrote. So they basically censored every letter you sent out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That afternoon, they would mostly censor your locations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That afternoon, we received some of our small arms, M1 rifles, carbines, and 45 Colt pistols, all preserved in cosmoline and wrapped in waterproof paper. An area several buildings down from our quarters was utilized as an armament stable, and it was there that we prepared the weapons that we used in combat. All the weapons had to be stripped down to remove all the traces of the cosmoline to function properly. Was that kind of like a Vaseline?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a preservative.
Well, they came overseas with them too. They were on a ship.
So that would prevent it from rusting.
Yeah.
We learned later that a firing range was accessible, and it would be afford us an opportunity to familiarize ourselves with individual weapons and zero them in for pinpoint accuracy. By zeroing them in, did you have a scope?
No.
No scopes on the guns?
No what?
Scopes. Did you have rifle scopes on the guns?
No, no.
This is what we'll be doing the next several days. The weather was mild, 50 to 60 degrees during the day, and at night it dropped down to 35 to 40 degree range. The sun was never in abundance, and most of the days were overcast with low-lying cumulus clouds lingering about. Rain was also a constant factor and reckoned on a daily basis. From when it rained, it came down in buckets, usually 1 to 3 inches at a time. They certainly do get a lot of rain there.
Well, they're right on the ocean.
Yeah. Thank goodness for our hotel billets stayed dry during it all, and we were thankful for that. Along with the issue of weapons, we were also supplied with numerous clothing rations, including 2 pairs of wool gloves,
17.
mittens, and finger. Did you use those gloves during the war?
Oh, yeah.
Long johns, long sleeve undershirts, and 6 pair of wool socks, and an extra pair of combat boots, a pair of 4-buckle galoshes, and a double wool blanket sleeping bag with their names and serial numbers stenciled on the outer cover. So they did a lot of work to supply your stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's their job, yeah.
That's a lot of work. In addition to the above-mentioned issue, we also received extra shorts, handkerchiefs, and an extra pair of ODs and fatigues. What's OD?
Olive drab.
Okay. We also issued all new webbing, pistol and cartridge trench knife, shelter half, and full field packet and raincoat poncho. Our helmet liners had our last name stenciled in the front, but our steel helmets were left untouched, with the exception of the officers, who had the narrow white band painted on the rear of theirs.
Yeah.
Our Form 20s were reviewed, shots brought up to date, and allotments, if any, reviewed and changed, if so desired, as well as our insurance beneficiaries and the notice of next of kin. All this was taken care of within the first few days upon our arrival in the theater. It was eerie but necessary. Also during our brief stay at Wales, our TO, what's a TO?
Commanding officer.
We brought it up to where it should have been several months ago. Captain Drooler was still the company commander. How was Captain Droolard?
Well, he's an older guy,
Was he a good company commander?
but he didn't have any action. He never seen any action.
Sergeant Whaler was still the first sergeant. How was Sergeant Whaler?
Well, he's a typical army man, office.
And Sergeant Rupert was our platoon leader. How was Rupert?
You know, he's old, but he didn't go over with us. They left him behind. He's too old.
We still had no platoon leader, even though Fink had been a squad leader before we left the States. He still had not received his sergeant stripes. I was the first gunner, Lape was assistant gunner, and Varela and Jensen were ammo barrels. How was Varela?
Well, he's a nice kid, young kid.
How was Jensen?
Young kid, they're all young kids,
Oh,
18,
ammo
19
bearers.
years old.
Yeah. With the rest of the squad to be filled in at a later date. All in all, we're still approximately 10 to 15 men under strength in the platoon, and I hoped our remaining days would bring us up to strength. Yeah, that's important. After the first week, we once again fell in the routine of sorts, much unlike anything we had experienced back in the States. In the States, we were isolated. Here, we're in the center of town, in the midst of the civilians living in the very same town, occupied them.
Yeah, that was nice. I like that.
That was a nice area.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the States, we were isolated, but you weren't isolated there.
No.
You lived right in the heart of the town,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
As such, there was not much complaining, as everyone in the back of their minds could relate to much more trying and devastating circumstances in the near future. I pulled Firewatch the third day we were in our billets. What was Firewatch?
Well, they had fire stoves in the barracks, you know, to keep the fires going, keep the barracks warm, so they had somebody watch the fires, so they'll start a fire.
Okay. Supplet. Let's see. We're in a bill. Okay. Twice more before we left. There was nothing more than monitoring and tending to fireplaces in the rooms in our building. It was much similar to guard duty, as we're on for 2 hours and off for 4 hours of sleep, or whatever. It was also on duty at nighttime as the men slept. I usually got to 200 to 400 hour tour, and then was off for the rest of the detail. What entailed was checking all the fireplaces on our ground floor, which numbered about 10 fireplaces, and seeing there's no fire hazard about, and generally keeping the coals burning until morning. No fireplaces were active during the daylight hours unless there's someone in constant attendance, due to the condition of the wooden building and their close proximity to one another. So the buildings were old wooden buildings.
Yeah.
Tinder boxes.
Yeah.
The imminent danger of fire was uppermost in my mind. Luckily,
11 minutes.
Luckily, we went through our stay at these billets without a single incident of fire.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. We kept on top of housekeeping for that express purpose, to keep clear of anything that would remotely cause a fire. The condition of the buildings were deplorable. Most of us wondered how the Army could be so cavalier as to let people occupy in them. This probably had much for how we rated in the higher scheme of things. We still had not gotten our full complement of people, and our leadership function left much to be desired. All the officers and senior non-coms we had trained with were gone, not through attrition, but of their own volition. So all the guys that trained you are all gone now.
Then I went back to the States.
They didn't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand that.
I still do not feel that we're really suited or ready for the vigors of combat. We were not cohesive and integral unit, functioning as a team. There was much friction and instability among the squads and platoons, and even in our company. Captain Drooler was aloof and incapable of instilling the men he commanded any semblance of leadership of the unit cohesion.
He's an older guy too.
Yeah. The other officers were most non-existent, and when we'd obtain one or two, they did not last for various reasons. The men themselves were mostly divided by the ASTP Air Corps, who were the elite and were always looking for that special privilege of non-toiling assignment.
Yeah,
That was the Air Corps, right?
yeah. Army Specialized Training Programs.
Yeah. I do not believe I can trust my life in their hands, since they're always self-centered and aggressive, what they believe was in their place in the scheme of things. Then you put in parentheses, scheme, Steve with an exclamation mark.
Yeah,
Yeah. Our squad, did he actually read this book?
Huh?
Did your brother Steve read this book?
Oh, yeah.
Was there comments?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Yeah, he said it was good, interesting, he said, interesting.
Our squad was probably the exception, I thought, although we had both Fink and Lape, who were both ASTP, but their personalities and their beliefs were exception rather than a rule. Fink was just an ordinary guy who happened to be fortunate to get in the ASTP. He always commented so many times, no big deal, and abided by that maxim. Lape, on the other hand, while not flaunting his good fortune to be in the
He was
ASTP,
older too. Lape was older.
older.
I don't know how he got it in, but he's in it. He's older.
Not flaunting his good fortune,
Well, he got sick. They put him in the hospital and never came back.
ASTP, displaying a strong affinity for believing he was superior to the rest of it. He would always try to intellectualize every facet of his existence, and the thing that would keep him in check was his constant follow-ups and his complete ineptness at soldiering. The rest of the squad were draftees, usually apathetic and forlorn. They did what they were told, but did not relish what they're doing, and only looked for the day when they'd be out of the army. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. They wanted to get out of the army, right?
Yeah.
I never discussed these issues with anyone, primarily since they believed it would be no good, but only antagonize certain individuals, and make them even more rigid in their performance. I have felt this way ever since coming.
6.5 minutes.
I felt this way ever since coming into the 75th Division, and with a short experience with the 106th. I only felt it more strongly. At one time I thought seriously about transferring into a special unit where there'd be all volunteers who consequently display more team spirit and of the corps. But much of what I deliberated, I never did anything substantial about it. So, you want to ask some questions now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Some off-the-wall questions. And I gotta remember, tomorrow we gotta pick up on chapter 7. And we're on page 183. These are just some questions. Mr. Jeckovich, being that you lived in Daytona Beach for over 50 years, when was the last time you went to the beach?
10 years ago.
How many times have you gone to the beach?
Once, twice.
Wow. What was the most shocking moment of your life?
Shocking move in my life.
Yeah.
Well, my wife had our kids.
Okay. Mr. Jeckovich, do you have any interest in how do you feel about photography?
Photography?
Yeah.
We had that. Remember that camera we had? That was a good camera.
Where's that?
They went out. They were obsolete after a while. They never made them again.
It said that Mr. Jeckovich, you were an usher as a little youngster, 12, 13, 14 years old, in Niagara Falls, New York. You ushered at the Strand.
Yeah.
And what's the other movie theater?
Kresge's.
No, you ushered movies at the Strand and the Cataract.
Yeah.
Of all those movies you watched there at the Strand and Cataract, what was the scariest movie you've ever seen?
The war movies.
War movies? Okay. Uh-huh. Mr. Jeckovich, what makes you stand out in a crowd?
What makes me stand out in the crowd?
Yeah.
Be not standing out.
Okay, not standing out. Uh-huh. If you were at the Battle of Bulge and the Ardennes Forest was barely populated with woods, with trees, if you got lost in the Ardennes Forest, what would you do?
Try to get out.
Okay. Being that you live on the ocean, close to the ocean I should say, and New Smyrna Beach is close, which is probably the shark capital of the world, would you swim with sharks?
No, never try it, no.
No. How do you feel about plastic surgery? Would you ever have plastic surgery?
No.
Oh, uh-huh. Mr. Jeckovich, what always puts a smile on your face?
What puts a smile on my face?
Yeah.
A good-looking girl.
100 years old, and he's still digging it out. Yeah. He's still 100 years old, he's still chasing it. Mr. Jeckovich, during the Battle of Bastogne, blood was everywhere. Does the sight of blood make you queasy?
No.
Minutes?
2.
Huh?
2.
Okay.
Crushed bones make me more uneasy.
Crushed bones?
Crushed arms or legs or something, yeah.
Oh, wow. Mr. Jeckovich, do you like your food hot or cold?
What?
Do you like your food hot or cold?
My feet?
Your food, do you like
Food,
it hot?
all depends what it is.
Oh, okay. Okay. What home design do you especially love?
Now what?
Home design. What type of home structure do you like?
Phone?
Home. H-O-M-E. What type of home design?
Well, when I was a kid, we had a modest home. I liked the home.
Okay. Yeah.
There's nothing fancy.
Mr. Jeckovich, do you believe and think money is the root of all evil?
Mostly, yeah.
During World War II, have you ever wielded a sword?
Now what?
Have you ever used a sword or a bayonet?
No. Never used my trench knife either.
Oh, okay. Miss?
45 seconds.
Oh. Mr. Jeckovich, where were you born?
Niagara Falls, New York.
And how was it then?
Beautiful city.
And tell us about how the neighborhood was.
Neighborhood, there wasn't that many houses there. There were seven, but now it was all jammed up and it went to hell.
It went to hell.
Yeah.
When you were a boy growing up in Niagara Falls, was the primary mode of transportation by horse?
Some of it, Lang's Bakery was still there.
Delivering their bread and milk
They
with
lived
horse?
2 doors away from us. There was a bakery.
Wow.
It smelled good in the morning for the bakery.
Really? Wow. Son?
We'll pick the rest of it tomorrow.